morning, everyone. My name is Mark Mizrahi. I'm one of the Jersey Aero Club instructors, and this is being presented by the Jersey Aero Club in a new committee that was formed known as the Safety Committee, in short. And a lot of us as members got together and says, you know, we want to promote education to our membership for the safety of flight and for the benefit of all of us to have the airplanes cared for, the pilots safety conscious and always following a set of guidelines, and most importantly to be in the framework mentally of their flight at the time they're taking it. So this is a safety seminar, the first one that's going to be recorded now, and our chief of the safety seminar is not able to be here. His name is Bill Stevenson. Give him the credit for providing all these documentations that we handed out to everybody behind the camera. There's a room full of people. Everybody behind the camera that has all the documentation by Bill. It'll be posted on the wiki along with the video of this. I temporarily took my mask off, and when we look at this down the road, we hope that the COVID would be over and everybody be without masks like I am now, but I'll be putting it right back on after we start to mingle. So right now we're keeping social distancing. I think 6 feet, about 8-10 feet is the closest person to me. But anyway, let's go from here. So I'm one of the people on the committee, as well as some other people that you'll see that will be on the posting of who's on the safety committee. And I was chosen as the one to make this first presentation on the topic is cold weather operations from the Lakewood Airport. Okay, that's going to cover many things. So what is the first item on the first page of the sheet? In bold heading it is snow or frost covered aircraft. So let me ask you guys a question first. How many of you believe that you can take off with some amount of frost and or snow on the airplane? Show of hands. No hands. Okay. How many think that you cannot take off with any kind of snow or ice on the airplane, meaning I got to wait till it either thaws or get rid of it? Raise your hand. Okay, we're still missing the mathematics of a couple of people in the room that didn't raise their hand. So how many people are not going to raise their hand no matter what I say? Okay, all right, that makes the math that everybody now either yes or no to the question or won't raise their hand at all. Okay, thank you for your participation. Okay, so as you could go along in this sheet, again, be posted on the wiki about the absolute positivity of no frost or snow on the airplane at all before a flight. Now, we're coming into that time of the season. What's today's date? November 22nd. Ooh, 22nd. So we're already way into the end of our fall, coming into the winter season, where it is an issue. Can you take off with snow or ice on the airplane? And the answer is absolutely not whatsoever any. And now with frost in the mornings, what are you going to need to do? Get that defrosted. So there's some discussion on this first page about why is that the case. Now, this is not an overwhelming amount of information that you guys would need to know, but it is, again, a realization of to be in the mindset that when you go out and think about a winter flight, that is there any frost as a first item or snow on the airplane at all whatsoever? The answer was no, not to have it, but why not? So Bill very nicely on the sheet, you can look along with me. The second paragraph from the top says, what is going to change to the, so what? It's got a little bit of frost, there's a little bit of, what's going to change? So one item on the sheet is what? Look at this sheet in the second paragraph from the top. What's going to change with snow and ice being on the airplane? Right? Wing is going to change the shape, meaning the snow and ice on the wing is going to change the camber of the wing. You agree with that? Yes. Can we get it a rounding? Yes? Oh, thank you. Okay, you made my day, because I'd be worried if you didn't think that snow or ice is going to do anything to the camber of the wing. It is going to affect that, right? Then another thing is about, what am I hinting to? What am I hinting to? Wait, thank you. Give the man a star, get a sheet ready and give him a star. Weight is going to add weight to the airplane too. Oh, so two things are fighting against you for the sake of aerodynamics. What? The change in the shape of the wing and also the weight of the airplane is going to increase. I also have a seaplane rating, and I'm an instructor to fly seaplanes and teach people to do that. So when we have a seaplane that is loaded with water in the summertime, how's it loaded with water? The floats are like a boat, and a boat, anybody knows, takes on water, sometimes from spray, from all different reasons and areas that the floats of a seaplane do also. You're adding what? Weight. And you want to see why that seaplane is taking 3 miles to get off the water? Weight, most likely. Plus, he's got a whole bunch of people in the plane too. But, you know, weight is a very big factor. So that was, right, why we don't take off, in short, with any snow or frost on the wings. Again, whatsoever. So back to our family of this club and why we're having the presentations. First item is to do what? Absolutely not. So not what? Have any snow or frost. So those people that have a hangar, you know, airplanes in a hangar, have an advantage. They open the door, they go fly. And we're envious of that. But we're parked in the outside, so you got to just do your diligence and get that off there. How do you get that off there? It's for another class at another time for another video. But absolutely no, no snow or frost can be on the airplane whatsoever. So we accomplished those reasons why that was the case. Good? Okay. Snow is off the airplane, you got it, and one of the mitigating factors is what? Waiting for the sun to be hot enough to get a little bit of a heating effect to the airplane, melt it, whatever you got to do. You're not going to put a blowtorch to it. But another thing that the winter flying affects is, what is this? What am I, you know, I used to be a pantomime, you know, I used to do that type of stuff, right? So what am I indicating? Control services, cables, and all of that, right? So of course, you know, what would you want to do to check for that? A thorough pre-flight, right? Thorough pre-flight. To that pre-flight would be what? You know, shaking the controls. And also, when you're in the cockpit, to do a thorough check of the controls. If you can't look over your shoulder down at the wing in the back, get somebody else to stand outside. Is it really moving fully? Okay, so that is what? Your paper on the first sheet for the second item involved. You see you're following along? Say yes, you're following along. Thank you. All right, one person following along. But anyway, you see where I'm going with that? You know, that has to do with the controls freezing. Great. And again, we wanted to be realizing that it's fully now moving and free of ice or snow. Is that a mindset to say, okay, we're good, we're free to go? Especially after, hint, hint, it was raining the night before maybe. It was above freezing the night before. A nice wet airplane. We've had that, the one I mentioned in front of the camera. Planes do leak sometimes, not just floats on a seaplane from a heavy rain, right? And it gets into control surfaces, gets into all of that. So are we okay in the winter flying? That's about a 40-degree day. And we're going to take it up to altitude, hint, hint, where I'm going with that. Look at your paper. No. We're not okay, because what is the lapse rate of temperature normally, without any inversion layers or all that stuff? Where's your lapse? What?
2.5 centigrade, I think.
Let's check out all Bill's hard work here. In the third paragraph from the first page, it says, 1,000 feet of altitude gain, you'll lose 2 degrees centigrade or 3.5. I think you're going that direction of normal lapse rate, right? So there you go, and you know, the plane, you know, you're flying after a rainy evening. That evening, you're the first one to take the plane up in the sky. Everything looks good to you. Yeah, the plane's a little damp. I sat with Mark's seminar. He told me that don't fly with ice or snow. There's no ice or snow, but it's wet. And you go up into altitude, you get a control lock. So hopefully it never happens to you. It happened to me where I had a control lock where I lost my elevator completely 350 feet above Monmouth Airport because the radio stack in the cockpit fell on the bell crank between the pilot and co-pilot controls and locked it. Yeah, so how did I land? I'm still here telling you the story, aren't I? So I did okay with trim, but you never want to be in a predicament where you get a control lock, so you're flying in the winter where it's seemingly okay from a wet night before your flight, and you got up to altitude and now you had some issues with freezing controls. Got it? So where are we? Now we're on de-icing and anti-icing. How do I get that stuff off from the top part of the sheet? Meaning that now, what do? I booked the plane, I got my family, the kids, they're all raring to go. They're bothering me to, let's get in the airplane already. It's getting cold out here. Let's get into the plane and warm up a bit, start the engine. But it's got snow or ice on it, or even frost. Right, we'll mention that. So what do? How do I get it off? Short answer, not easily. Wake up to the reality. Not easily. What do some people do that have an airport facilities? I'm sorry, Kevin, but okay. With facilities, they'll put into a heated hangar and pay for it to thaw it out. They'll, wait till the day warms up and delay their flight till the sun heats hopefully, right, and melts the airplane sufficiently. Or third choice, sorry, you just can't fly. You can't take off with that amount of items on the airplane for the reasons we just went over, right? So that's the bottom. You're following it along? We're on the de-ice part. So if you're lucky to have an airport that has a facility with a de-ice truck that makes that alcohol spray and sprays down your airplane like they do in the airlines, a pretty penny, I'm sure, to pay for that service, that's fine. Right? And in fact, any liquid that gets within the controls of the airplane, well, they're alcohol based and they're not going to freeze, right? So that is some anti-icing choices. So that's where you're at a disadvantage. We need to know that. Again, sorry, Kevin, but being at an airport without facilities, because it's a pretty penny to pay for those needs. And, we got to deal with it. And that's why we're having a safety seminar to realize as a family, some choices have to be made sometimes. And in the interest of safety, maybe it's a no-go. There's too much frost or snow on the airplane, among other things of freezing of the water in flight. So turn the page. Okay, everybody got the page? All right, what about other forms of things you should know about winter flying? Again, this is nothing brainstorm or overwhelmingly new. It's to put everybody in the mindset of a winter framework of flying. And the top of the page says what?
Carbon monoxide.
Carbon monoxide, yeah, because we're ram air induced heating for the most part. And even those janitrol heaters like some of the Twin Comanches have and Piper Aztecs and airplanes like that, they have their own combustion chambers to independently provide heat. Well, you know what? That particular form, either way, is going to maybe have a carbon monoxide impact. So a carbon monoxide detector would be great. Now, Bill spent some time on the Saratoga, our Saratoga, having a device for a carbon monoxide alerter. So, but anything that, even a dashboard stick-on thing that would change color with carbon monoxide, because as we know, carbon monoxide has no color and no odor. So you can't tell until you're wondering why you're not thinking straight, maybe, right? Hopefully it never happens. Great. All right, our second seminar today is the second page, second paragraph, which is the Red Dragon. So why a Red Dragon or other similar devices like that? Because we want to preheat the engine. Preheat the engine does an awful lot for a lot of reasons. Obviously, it makes the engine start easier, makes the engine last longer because now the starting is not ice cold, and the heating of the metals of the engine will be a little bit up to speed, so to speak, that it's already preheated a bit. It has a lot of great advantages. And Bill goes out of the way to make this document to say, wait a second, for different airplanes, there's different preheating methodology. And he has on here the Mooney is not from the front, or maybe other airplanes that have a small form factor intake on the front. You might stick it up from the cowl or cowl flap area and put a heating element into there. So the Red Dragon demonstration is now really worthwhile to, I think you're going to be recording that also, to get that as a preheat. So now we're up to the engine. We left the airplane, we're up to the engine preheating, and we have, that need to know also. Bill give them the credit for not missing detail, that you put the intake of the Red Dragon type of heating device into the, let's say, the left part of the cowl through where the propeller is, and now you switch it to the right side. What happened to the right side, and put the plug of the cowl on the left. In other words, switch sides with it is a very, very good thing. And all this is going to take time. So what do you do with your time? You leverage it. You'll have to just book, let's say, an extra hour earlier to do all the proper pre-flight and getting the engine warmed up. The advantages are so obvious, we don't have to enumerate them for the sake of the video. You can read the sheets on the wiki and just do your own imagination how much preheat will help in so many different ways. So the bottom of the page says, what else do you need to be concerned with winter flying? Look at the bottom of the second page. What does it say there? Last paragraph on the second page. It says that, wait a second, my instruments need to warm up also. Oh, yeah, I didn't realize that. Well, you would. When you fire up, your master switch and turn the radios on, and then the LED displays are like flickering, right? And until they warm up. So you have that. You also have, if it comes up now, we'll mention it now. It probably comes up in another page or two, about sticky gauges, sticky instruments, all because, a little bit of lubrication is congealed due to the temperature. So, those are things to take into mind. Again, everybody knows this. We all know this. But if you could be in the frame of mind, then you'll be a little bit more patient and maybe book some more time ahead to cover these items before you fly in the winter. Question from the peanut gallery. Yes?
Many sources say that
The question was to heat the cabin, because we just mentioned about the instruments inside the cockpit, and LED displays are going to be, basically cold as well. So give the gentleman a sheet of paper. To follow along. Show them what page you're on. So that's the question is, maybe I'll do a Red Dragon inside the cabin as well. Well, as we said, the Red Dragon is basically, an ignition of propane to exhaust, right? So, not recommended. And I know with my own personal airplane a few years back, what I did was I had an actually electric heater, space heater, a little tiny thing. That was an AC outlet that I left in there during my pre-flight. And again, all this extensive awareness and need to know about your pre-flight, I had my electric heater with the door partially open, the crack, because I didn't want to bend the door from the electric cord. And actually, it made a night and day difference. So thank you for bringing that up. Yeah, about the internal heat, in cockpit heat. So yeah, electric heater is the only thing I could think of. Again, a heated hangar if you had somebody to, help you out with that. Or from the first page, at Lakewood we have the mechanics hangar. Maybe you can make arrangements with the FBO, leave the plane inside. It's going to be a light snow evening before your flight the next day. Arrange to leave the plane inside somewhere, one of the hangars, one of the maintenance men, that has the shop here, or the white canvas hangar, somewhere, just you talking out loud and really thinking out loud how you can mitigate some of this based on John's question. Give you the credit for that, the internal heat. Okay, that's great. So the next page we're going with, this is on your sheet. It's called page 3 of 8 at the top. Along with the gauges being congealed and slow to populate, or the congealed oil in the engine. Bill makes a note of congealed oil in the pressure gauge, that the pressure gauge is going to show high in the very beginning because the oil is just kind of locked into that gauge. And you definitely want to do a run-up with low RPM. That's another biggie. Boy, is that a biggie. You can spend half the video on just startup RPMs. But low RPMs, why? Because the engine is cold, and we don't want to overwear the engine in that cold state. And not to do a run-up, of course, or even taxi out, maybe not, depending on a few things we're going to come up in the discussion. But to you wait till you get into the least touching the green, especially before a run-up. Right, the green temperature gauge on oil temperature. Good. Great. All right, so let's assume that we all got past this point in a real pre-flight, a real startup, and now you're going to be thinking about what about my destination, what kind of facilities they have. And on page 3 of page 8, there's cold weather starting continued, which has to do with your destination requirements and any facilities they have there, along with the weather that we'll mention. And continuing on page 3 of 8, we have the specific characteristics of each different airplane slightly. Where is the pitot tube? Does a pitot heat work? When did you check that? Did somebody check that? Now, if you're a single pilot flying alone that day, till you put the electric on for your master, run outside, feel the pitot heat, run back in. I actually have a funny story. I left my cover on when I did that. Figure I'll take the cover off when I went outside. Well, the heat was so populated into the pitot tube, I actually started to melt the cover. So, caution that if you're going to check the heat by hand, you want to take the cover off first before you put the master on. Then go out and check it. Otherwise, you're going to melt the cover possibly. And I've been there, done that a few times, but that's okay. We learn from the school of hard knocks, right? So to share this all amongst ourselves now. So further down on page 3 of 8 is, it says engine leaning. I'm not going to include that into this video. We'll do that separately because it's really a great topic about how to lean an engine. But you guys with the packets of sheets, you do have a sheet on light combing, a separate sheet on how to lean the engine on a light combing engine, so on and so forth sheets. So look at that as a sidebar. Continuing with page 3 of 8 is slick taxiways and runways. It's only obvious, again, there's nothing I'm telling you that's overwhelming here in this video, and your learning is in a thinking mode of, wait, all right, I have to taxi out to the runway. Is there any ice or snow on the runway? And if there is, how am I going to steer the plane down this icy, snowy runway or taxiway? And those of you don't have one in the club, we don't have one in the club, but, excuse me, with that we'll just get a sheet. Yeah, and here's a couple more, John. For that, another one, another package. But just so you guys in the frame of mind to think about taxiing, I was saying that we don't have a shopping cart nose wheel style airplane like the Grumman fleet of airplanes and the Cirrus fleet of airplanes that don't have a steerable nose wheel. They have to steer by brakes. That makes it even harder. But even with a steerable nose wheel, we have to always look at how are you going to navigate and maintain control, especially on a windy day that most of the winter is windy, and how this plane is going to maintain stability in a simple thing as taxiing. So that's at the bottom of page 3 of 8. Good? So yes, that's great. Okay, so page 4 of 8 is now going to realize that we're now in the cockpit after a pre-flight. We are starting the engine. And we're not realizing that, just typically there's things on the floor. What kind of things are on the floor? I'm just saying it that way so you can start thinking when you start the engine in the winter after maybe some snow plowing, hint, and all of that. What's on the floor below the prop? Particles of snow and ice, And not only might it hit the prop and you want to make sure you're clear of that, but who's standing behind you? Or what airplane is behind you? Or what is behind you? Because now you're going to go blow all that back, and there we go again, back to the high revs of a start. You're starting, especially in the winter, with an ice cold engine and the stress of metal against metal of a cold start. It's a start with low RPM, meaning that it says a quarter, they mean a quarter. I mean, that's a quarter of an inch. You know how big that is, like a quarter of an inch in the camera? So, look at your thumb. Only a quarter of the inch of it is that. All right, you need more. You could always add more later. It didn't work out with that quarter of an inch to start, but start with that certainly, because now you become, a launcher of projectiles. You didn't think about it. How many times do you see when flying in the airlines in the winter, they're giving the turbojet, the takeoff power or even to taxi around power, and they're spewing all of that snow and ice behind them. And I say, who's behind them, those jets, you know, right? So, you know, a good thing to think about, don't you think? I would say, yes, absolutely. That's page 4 of 8, towards the top. So you're taxiing down on an icy day, you're trying to maintain control, and there goes some gusty crosswinds, and it's moving the tail from you, away from you, so to speak, you know? Picture yourself doing that, and you're weather vaning into the wind involuntarily. So how do you prevent that? To try and assess the ground situation at the airport as best you could. A lot of times they'll be listed on the ATIS, NOTAMs, you know, about the runway conditions, taxiway. And almost always going to say ice and snow on the runway and taxiways, aren't they? Absolutely yes. But at least it's, you know, FYI that you're not surprised that that might happen to you. Okay, you're rolling down the runway. Let's do this. You didn't even roll down the runway yet. You took position and hold. And by the way, private airport, you shouldn't position and hold. Somebody might be behind you. Don't take position unless you're ready to take off. But you're on the position to take off. So you add power. So you know from your engineology in an airplane with the prop, the way it turns clockwise and all of that, what's going to happen to the airplane first is going to have a left or right turning tendency. Which is it? What?
Left.
Left turning, thank you. That's why he's the chief pilot. John, hats off to you. Okay, so the rest of you knew that too, of course. But the purpose of this is get everybody in the framework to think and be a safe pilot. So it's going to have a left tendency. What's holding that tendency back? The nose wheel, the main, you know, the stabilization. But there is no stability because now you didn't realize that you turned on a little piece of icy area. You know, why is that piece icy and the rest of the runway look good to you? Why is that piece icy and the rest of the runway look good? Can you tell me the answer to that? The rest of the runway was active with planes landing and taking off. You know, they touched down there. You now, you know, want the maximum length. So you're coming to an area that hardly anybody rolls over. Oh, so you added power thinking that everything is okay. You didn't realize there's something below you. So pay attention to where you're taxiing. And on your takeoff, that might slip away from you. And then you'll have to pull the power back and just taxi to a little bit clearer spot, maybe ahead a little bit. So that's on Bill's sheet. Give him the credit. I keep saying that because he did a lot of work on this. And all I'm doing is smiling and presenting it. Okay, so thank you for following along. All right, so you're taxiing down the runway and you have, you know, you don't like it, meaning abort. You find that, you know, you accelerate, stop distance is affected. You didn't consider that. Did you consider that? Most likely not. I'm guilty of that also. And, you know, consider that because your stopping is getting reduced. And we come to the stop distance in a moment. We're on page 5. We're almost done. So we're on page 5, passing the point of no return. So you can't stop the video now because of 5 of 8. 5 of 8. Get the mathematics of it? We're just sense of humor. Okay, so this has to do with, he calls it at the top of page 5 of 8, BERM. You strike a berm. What is that? I never heard that word.
A lump on the ground.
A lump, okay, yeah, but a lump on the ground this time created by a snowplow or something left over, right, that was not, you know, leveled off, right? So Bill makes a few references to this where you first taxi out and meanwhile your taxiway in front of the airplane is clear, but there's a little bit of that mound, a little bit of that berm in front of the airplane. So you're kind of gunning it to, you know, break over that little mound, as I like to call it, in front of the airplane. Picture that? Yes? Absolutely yes. So just say yes, it's okay. So you're trying to break over that. But remember the projectiles you're throwing behind you? Plus, you might strike the prop on it. Plus, you know, the proper way is to shut down if you forgot to look in front or you have a problem with that. So in a safety seminar, the Jersey Aero Club recommend shut down and shovel the front of the airplane if you didn't do that already. Don't try and hop over that little patch of snow or whatever was, you know, left over from snow plowing. And then your wings, of course. This is the middle of page 5-8 over snowbanks. You know, you're taxiing on a narrow taxiway and the wings are hanging over the snowbanks. And you thought you're clear, you're not quite clear, and you clip the bottom of the wings and make some scratches on it. You know, hopefully it's only that simple, right? So, again, thinking constantly. So, oh man, it's not easy, is it, flying in the snow? It actually is if you do the proper mental thought process and dot every I and cross every T. Winter anomalies, the middle of page 5-8. That the weather can change, meaning that what did you do and how thorough was your pre-flight briefing? I was only going local. Yeah, when was the last time you checked the TAF, right? The terminal area forecast, which people don't realize for another time, another lesson, how often that's issued, and what area it's covering, and where is it covering you from? Usually not your airport here in Lakewood, is it? No. But it's close enough to, McGuire and all of that to get a handle on that you realize the winds are going to pick up. So what was good, and this is good, of course, all year round, is that what was good now when I left is not going to be good later. Maybe not, right? So that's good, right? And this is the middle of page 5-8. Right. ForeFlight has something called the MOS. Anybody know that acronym? What does it stand for? Model Output Statistics. Model Output Statistics. It's a ForeFlight proprietary weather forecast that they go beyond a terminal area. Terminal area is only how far wide or in radius of the terminal area that it's depicting. 5 miles usually as an average, 5 miles as an average. So this goes beyond it to a region usually. And to get a MOS from ForeFlight, Model Output Statistic, weather briefing is very, very good. That's just a sidebar. That's not in there. I get paid for some reason, that's what I added myself. Okay. Okay, so let's go further. Winter weight of passenger gear. Oh, I love this one. I flew many, how many, Mark? A lot. Of 135 flights through my, different years of, moonlighting at different 135 operators. And we always had a rule of thumb, you got to count 10% in weight to the people that have told you what they weigh in advance of, because they lie. Not deliberately so, but everybody wants to look slim and trim. How do I look? And, everybody wants to, be, I only weigh, 175 or whatever, average weight. And meanwhile, they're about 190. So you're always adding, the weight. So what's the point of our safety seminar is that this is winter flying. You now forgot about all the clothing you're wearing and those heavy boots. You're probably coming on at your own weight another 10, 15 pounds yourself. Times that by 4 passengers, do the math, which I didn't. But when you do the math, you're starting to wonder why this plane is not performing like it should, because normally in winter you get better or worse performance. What is it? In the winter, you get better or worse performance? Much better. And I'm not getting that. What's going on? Oh, so you didn't realize you're taking on all this weight. So weight and balance needs to be taken into consideration, which also affects page 1. Go back to page 1 and think about what that was about for those of you that came in late. Look at page 1. You can factor in weight and balance and snow and ice being on the plane. No? Absolutely yes. Okay, great. So on page 7. We're on page 7? Did I do that? No, page 6. Sorry. You thought you'd get rid of me that fast? Page 6. All right, how to stay informed. All right, there's something called the SNOTAM. There's something called the NOTAM. We're familiar with that. Even the call in FBO has a look there. Things that you need to be proactive instead of reactive. So you want to be proactive ahead of time. As much information to make a go, no-go decision. And not only just where you're leaving from, I want to add that, where you're going. So where you're going, right? I got to tell you, this thing on page, what thing, Mark? 6 of 8. Bill has a story here to make the point of a destination flight that he took in Canada, destination he was landing at, where odal lights, first of all, who knows what odal lights are? They're centerline lights you see mostly in Canada and Europe. I never saw them physically, but you can look them up, you can Google it, odal lights. It's an extension of the centerline with lights. It's approach lights, that's really all it is. But our typical approach lights for another safety seminar are ALSIF, meaning the medium intensity light systems and all of that we're so used to with horizontal bars. That's just a straight centerline light extending into the light system past the runway. He said that didn't line up with the runway as he was coming in visually. Picture this. I'm saying, how could that not line up with the runway? So where are we? This is page 6 of 8, right in the middle there. He describes, because they were in the process of plowing in a snowstorm, or maybe it's after the snowstorm, read the page. And he says that they plowed the left part of the runway length, and they didn't get to the right part. So he actually took a flight. He said it's a medevac flight at the time, and he had to land on that left side, but it didn't match the approach lights. Because picture that, centerline lights, that was not the centerline. Now the center of the airport is to the left because there was a, plowing in progress. So is there plowing in progress? Most of the time you'll hear that on an ATIS or a NOTAM or even a WAS broadcast possibly. You want to find that out. So that was the middle of that page. Okay, you have a sheet for FICON. What is FICON? So FICON, right, field condition reports. All right, not a lot of times you're going to see that numbering system, but there's a wonderful, wonderful, wonderful page in your kit that Bill provided in print of FICON numbers. And FICON numbers, I'm not going to go through that for the sake of the video, but be on the wiki, and that's runway condition by numbers. The runway is 5 by 6 by 7, or 5 by 4 by 3, or whatever set of numbers is on that sheet. Does everybody see that sheet? That FICON sheet in your packet? Wonderful, wonderful sheet, and there you go with that. So, the FICON numbers. All right, but what's more prevalent and more likely is, I'm having fun with you. If I move around, I drive the camera guy crazy to constantly adjust and follow me. What's more exacting to an everyday pilot is that braking good, braking poor, that type of a report back of how the braking is rather than the FICON system. FICON system, you'll see more of the Kennedy Newark type airports, and you would see, weather reports based on a FICON system. But on an everyday basis, either in the ATIS, the AWAS, or Tower, a lot of times does, with my winter flying experience, the 737 Beach King Air just landed, reported braking good. That's not good enough. Good is not good enough. Why is that not good enough? Please tell me. The audience. What? That's why he's chief pilot. Didn't I say that before? Yes, John, thank you. He said what? He said because most of the time they're not using brakes, they're using reverse thrust or reverse pitch propeller to stop. So because the King Air landed and the King Air told me what? That the braking was good. He don't brake like I brake. And he brakes. He brakes with propeller, right? Reverse progress. So be aware of that. Again, thinking mode, the purpose of this seminar in safety. Get everybody to think this is winter flying now. We're done with that page? All right, page 7. More of the FICA system, braking action, we went over that. We went over that. Okay, so we're good. That's page 7. So I think that's it. So really, you want to fly the airplane when it's nice and toasty, and all of those procedures were done. Any questions on anything you had in this safety seminar, or anything else you want to ask? Okay, for another time and for another seminar. We look forward to it. Thank you.